Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the college coaches and players and parents that are out there, fans of the Spotlight Podcast. My name is Anthony Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Connected Athletics. We are a new startup company based here in Austin, Texas. We are trying to use my love of technology and technology platform that allows middle school, high school, college, and pro student athletes to successfully transition into their sport, out of their sport, to make sure that they use the life skills they learned during that sport to be successful when the sport is over, when they're done with their sport, or the sport's done with them. We are excited to have a good friend, somebody who's had a direct impact, not just on me as a brother in Christ to this man you're about to hear from, but also with my daughter. We have become close friends over these last 4 years. John Carpenter is not just one of the best softball coaches out there in the country right now. He's also an author. He's very active in the community here in Austin and all over. He's from California like myself, so I love that about him. He's the head coach at Hyde Park High School for the softball program there. He's also the head coach of the Texas Bombers 18U Gold Team with Scott Smith and that great organization. He's got this new movement called Win the Moment, which I can't wait to talk about, where he's directly having an impact on student athletes and non-athletes all across the country and talking to them about how you seize a moment in life and don't miss those opportunities to go from good to great. John, you can see his Twitter name there. John, tell me how you're doing this evening. Thanks for joining the show.
Man, it's always good to see you, brother. Been a long day. Got in from practice here a little ago, but been looking forward to hanging out with you. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's sunny and 75 in Austin, Texas. So
yeah, no, another great day here. I can't believe we had 8 inches of snow not more than 45 days ago, but that's a whole nother story. John, let's just jump right into it, man. Let's just start. I'll kind of start and let you kind of go in, but I just kind of prefaced it. I say this with all full manhood. I love you as a brother in Christ. My daughter was without a team going into her senior year. Pretty good little player. She said, "Dad, I want to try out for the Blaze." I'm like, "Baby, go for your dreams." And she went to try out, and she came home, and she didn't talk about the Blaze because we played against you guys. She came home talking about the coach. She said, "Dad, I think I met your white brother. This guy, this Coach Carpenter, ran the practice just like you. There was no BS. It was hustle and everything you do." And I remember going, "Well, I got to meet this guy, And so I appreciate you giving my daughter a chance to showcase herself very late in the recruiting process and actually helping her get to Louisiana Tech. So I am always going to be in your debt for you, your beautiful wife, and your family, and all that you do for student athletes, because it's personal to me, man. We are going to be tied by the hip for my daughter, for what you've done for her. So I want to personally thank you as we start the show for not just what you did for AJ, but what you do for all of the players out there, student athletes across the state.
Yeah, man, it's funny. You never know what kind of jokes you can tell today, but people have said, "Dude, you remind me of Anthony Williams." I'm like, well, what's different about us? I don't get it. And so I like to play that card, but man, I hear that a lot. People like, "Man, you Coach Williams' brother, aren't you?" I'm like, maybe, sure, why not? So I love it. I love the comparisons. Of course, I love AJ. She makes it easy, and I know you're on here, but when we talk about recruiting, boy, I sure wish parents understood how easy or how hard they can make the process. And of course, y'all made it easy. And AJ's such a great kid from a great family.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a great point to jump in for right at the start of the interview here. Let's talk about the recruiting process. And this really goes for all sports. John, talk about your vast experience in helping a lot of student athletes, and not just in softball, get to the next level. Tell these players and parents some of the things that they need to understand if they're going to be serious in what I call setting realistic recruiting expectations.
Yeah. Well, boy, the list is long, but I'll jump into it kind of like this. Don't do harm to your recruiting process.
Yeah.
You may not know how to help it. You may have a lot of questions about what to do. Do I email? Do I text? Do I reach out? Do I bother them? But what I would say on the front side is don't do anything to hurt your process. And by that, I mean, stay focused, stay upbeat, be a great team player, be selfless. I touched on y'all from the parent standpoint. So many of these athletes, the talent is there. That's why coaches are calling. That's why they're emailing. That's why they're in the stands. Well, June 1st, they'll be back in the stands. But they're already there for your kid. So they're there to see something different. And, I like to kind of refer to myself as a link in a chain. These kids have so many great coaches and people and families, and I don't take personal responsibility for any of them. But what I do try to challenge kids is to go from good to great, because most of the kids that are being recruited, they're all good. They're all talented. You know this, on the highest level of the game, you get to the 6A Texas football state championship game. Both programs are pretty solid.
Right.
So what's the difference at the end of the fourth quarter? And I use that same analogy with the recruiting process. Look, you're comparing yourself against Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, JUCO. You're athletes all over the country. So when you look just like the other guy, what's going to set you apart? And I promise you this, Coach: integrity, character, communication skills, the way you present yourself, those are going to separate. When you got two blue chippers and you're looking at them side by side, the thing that's going to stand out, that's going to tip the scale, is going to be that home piece, the character piece, the communication piece. You're both talented. The coach wants both of you. Which one is going to have a great attitude? Which one is going to have a selfless attitude? Which one is going to be able to overcome adversity? And which one is going to have a supportive foundation at home for both the student athlete and their next level program?
Yeah, and you and I talked about it before, John. It's the intangibles, and I think a lot of players and parents need to understand this and hear what John just said. If I'm a college coach, and John knows a lot of them, I know a lot of them, I've been there. I can win with both players, but I only have one scholarship left. What's going to be the difference isn't what your batting average was or how many bombs you hit. It's going to be, do you fit in the culture of my program? Are you going to be okay with the team chemistry we have in my locker room? If I can't check those boxes, that coach is probably not going to offer you. John, you mentioned a great point about how not to hurt your recruiting process. And I like to keep it, me keeping it real. Give these players and parents one example of how a player, because I'm sure they hear that from you, from Coach Carpenter, thinking, well, Coach, I would never do anything to hurt my recruiting as a player. Or, hey, Coach, I'm the father of AJ. I would never do anything to hurt my daughter. Give these coaches, you've been doing this a long time. Just give a couple examples of what you mean by a bad example that a college coach may look at the performance of a player or a teacher or a parent and go, yeah, I don't think we want to bring that in.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, as soon as you said that, I go to IDT in Colorado. So it's a big softball tournament in Boulder, Colorado, and I am standing with an SEC coach. Let me think for a second. National championship, SEC coach, and we're behind some bleachers, and there were some fans, thankfully from, or not thankfully, from another Texas team. So I knew who they were. And he goes, hey, do you know who they belong to? I said, well, matter of fact, and I kind of pointed the kid out, and I watched him scratch a name off a list of about 6 kids, maybe 5 kids on his list. And if we were actually standing behind the parents, and it'd be a long story, but let's just say the parents weren't the most positive people in the stands. That happens. I'm not going to say a lot. That happens far more than parents understand. And I've had both. You have parents that like to talk about their kid, and I want them to. I'm a grandpa. I'm a dad. I love bragging on my kids. But one thing that I would tell parents, and I would tell student athletes, when you push up or when you speak about your teammates or your other family members in high regard, in a really positive manner, people take notice of that.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I would say that stands out for me are the little things. Let's just use softball for a minute. If Tim Walton shows up from Florida, he knows that the kid can drop bombs. Does he know if that kid can strike out and work on their nonverbal skills, knowing they're not happy because they don't want to strike out in front of college coaches watching, but college coaches understand that's part of the game. And I wish more student athletes, by the way, football, basketball, softball, baseball, it doesn't matter. Nonverbal skills, what you do after adversity. Adversity is going to follow you. It's at this level, it's at the next level, it's at the professional level. The teams and the athletes that succeed at a high level overcome adversity. You don't have to be happy with it, but reframe it. What am I going to take from that pick? I underthrew that ball. Or, boy, I took some bad hacks at that kid out there who's dealing. By the way, they're watching her pitch too. How do we overcome that? And I'll tell you this, coaches, and I know I even do this on travel ball level. I will sit beside the dugout. I already know that I want that kid out there playing shortstop to come play for us, but I'm listening to the dugout. I want to know what kind of teammate they're going to be. So I would say the parent piece is a very real deal, from what they put on social media, what they type, text, or send to coaches, what they say in the bleachers and the stands. And I would say a second one for me is all that nonverbal stuff that goes along with playing the game.
Yeah. John, I'm interested in your thoughts. You've been doing this a long time, like myself. There's always a player that, every player is like, I want to play D1 softball, I want to play D1 football, or whatever my sport is, D1. Talk about how, I know you don't talk about this, there are more opportunities outside of D1 than there are in D1, and D1 isn't cracked up for everybody. Talk about how, players how they could impact the recruiting by maybe widening their net and being open to FCS, Division II, Division III.
Well, I say this all the time, and I believe it to be true. Number one, you're striving for an education. I hope that's true of every student athlete. When this thing's done, I want a degree. I want to be able to go on after this. And I know you've got some questions on that. But the other thing is this: go for experience. James Barton, catcher, University of Texas, he wanted to be in that environment. Well, he knew when he chose to go D1 Texas, he knew that he was probably going to be a bullpen catcher for 4 years and probably never going to get into a game. That was what he wanted for a wide variety of reasons. Then you have a student athlete, they want to go make an impact. Like, they want to be the star. They want to be the stud, and no shame in that. But they get their eyes set on Florida, Tennessee, Texas, Notre Dame, and they lose sight of the experience. What will my relationship be like with this coach? Is this coach going to be there 4 years while I'm there? How am I going to mesh with the current environment? So I would tell any student athlete, research a program you would love to play in at every level. Jamie Perez, I believe, was a solid D1, D2 softball prospect. She chose to go to East Texas Baptist University, a D3 program, became a 4-time All-American, is now on their coaching staff, has an incredible fiance, all because she didn't look at the number behind the D. She went for the experience, meaning the social, the life experience. And I would tell any student athlete that the guy that's going to be an SEC All-American, well, those are and you help me, those are the 1%ers.
Yeah.
But there's so much great football, basketball, baseball, softball. There is so much great athletic experience out there at every level. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but the JUCO route is so huge.
Yeah.
Those JUCO coaches, they want you to go to the next level. And anybody who comes and gets you from a JUCO, they're looking for a starter. They're looking for an impact kid. Whereas you go in as a freshman to a larger, higher profile program, you might sit at the bench, learn redshirt. Nothing wrong with that route either. But understand the route that you want to take. But also, and this really goes for parents, be realistic.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this. If I lied to you today, you can be mad at me forever. But if I tell you the truth today, you're going to be mad today, but you're going to be happy with me for the rest of your life because I was honest with you. Yeah. And we got some kids out there that we need to look at and go, listen, man, you got a great game, but you're probably built for a real solid D3 program or D2. And that's female, male athletes. So for me, it's the experience and get to know the program you're going into.
John, you bring up a good point. And, I'm sure even my daughter maybe went through it. You've coached a lot of great athletes who are going D1. And they think, I played for the Bombers. I was on their goal team. We played at PGF. We've been to, Firecracker. I played against elite talent in Florida. I know I'm going to play as a freshman. And then the real world kind of hits them like, yeah, you're good, but there's a senior who's been grinding at an SEC, ACC, Pac-12, Big 12 school. How do you help reset some of your players to come back and go, coach, I'm not playing. I'm not starting. I'm batting in this hole. I should be here. What kind of advice would you give to players and parents that are about to graduate that, hey, kind of reset things as you move on to the next level? Because when you get there, hey, those are the best of the best kids also.
Yeah. So for me, it's a fine line because what comes out of my mouth is you're going to be a freaking All-American. And I want that to be your mindset. There's two things that I ask of all my student athletes. And this goes back to some football kids, Braun Hager back from Westlake, some different kids at Louis Gilbo back from Westlake, baseball, football player. So it's football, basketball, it doesn't matter. Go in there. Two things I ask: make an impact as a freshman. That doesn't have to be in the starting lineup. You make an impact in the dugout. You make an impact as a teammate. You let them know you're there for the program. But number two is I want your mindset to be, I want to strive to be an All-American. Now, seize your opportunity. Bree Warren right now, Texas A&M, boy, she jumped in, got an opportunity, and she's killing it right now as a freshman at A&M. I have some other kids that really took them a little while to kind of get their feet under them. Some of them didn't get in the lineup till their sophomore, junior year. Been blessed with a group of kids that have made an impact in the lineup as freshmen, but you have to trust the process and you have to trust your coach. That process might be that super stud shortstop. We need a shortstop right now. But one thing that I would tell every athlete in every sport, I know you can help me far more with football, be great at a secondary position.
Yeah.
Don't be locked into in softball. A couple of great examples. We had a kid recruited by Tennessee to play second base. Well, when she got to Tennessee her freshman year, they had an All-American at second base. I don't care how good you are coming out of Texas. Well, guess where they had an opening? Over there at third base. Well, this kid had been put at third base, first base. She goes over there, makes the All-SEC freshman team, and her name's Chelsea Sagern, and went out and made a name for herself at third base, but she was recruited by Tennessee to play second base. I believe that's true with football, basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Are you multi-dimensional? I read a story, man, I shouldn't bring it up, so I'm gonna mess it up, but a kid that was being recruited offensively, COVID hit, is a Texas kid, began to work on his defense game, and the kid's got a scholarship as a defensive player now.
Yeah.
And yet he was busting his tail as an offensive player. And whether you call it God, fate, or COVID, life took a turn, but that kid was prepared for that, and he got recruited there.
Yeah. No, there's a ton of stories around that, and I told the same thing to players, for example, in football. Are you a football player? Or are you a quarterback? And kids kind of look at me like I have three, like, what do you mean, coach? Well, because if you're just a quarterback and you want to go to school A and they don't happen to be looking for quarterbacks your graduation year, but they're looking for another position, are you open enough to play that? Oh, well, no, coach. Well, I said, well, you just reduced your recruiting net really, really narrow, because most college coaches, I want a football player that's going to be open to doing whatever it takes for this team to win, to exceed. And some people want to say, I'm built that way. It's so you bring up a great point that, and I love the fact that, you and I have the same mindset. I train my daughter and many other softball players. You got to play multiple positions because, like you said, what if your position isn't available? Tennessee's a great program. That girl said, you know what? I want to be great in this great D1 program. So if I got to go to third base to do it, sign me up. And I wonder how many kids are like, well, you know what? I'm going to go into the transfer portal and I'll transfer to X school Y and I'll be a second baseman there. And then they end up transferring again. So, the whole transfer portal is a whole nother show that you and I can do about, but I want to take the rest of our time here to talk about some of the things you're doing, because I think you have a very interesting perspective. You could be a coach at one of the top programs here in Texas, and not that Hyde Park isn't, but I love over the years getting to know you, how you talk about your Hyde Park team is always a scrappy bunch of girls who probably wouldn't make your Bomber ATU gold team, but you love and coach in the same ways you do some of the most elite girls in the country. Talk about that variation, that gap, and how you enjoy both a girl who learned how to dig a ball at first base compared to the girl who's going to be committed to LSU, who's just dropping bombs at every tournament you're at.
Yeah. So that comes up every year. So I'm in my 18th year at Hyde Park, and I think my 18th year of travel ball. But either way, it's been a couple of decades with specifically softball. So and man, you know me, I would talk for 40 minutes on this. Coaching is a passion, and I believe it's a calling. And I get in trouble because I'm not a money guy. If I'm in it for business, I'm probably going to go bankrupt. I don't know, because that's not what it's about for me. If you love kids, the Hyde Park Texas Bomber Gold team, number 2 team in the country, I should be number 1, but number 2 team in the country, and then you've got Hyde Park, who has won games against 5A, then Westlake, Round Rock, Georgetown. I mean, this program has won some big games. We're not that program right now.
Yeah.
But I give you a really good example. We have a kid named Charlotte who's a junior this year. Her freshman year, she most of these kids, most of them have never played softball to speak of until they get to their freshman year at Hyde Park. She drops down squeeze bunt, and I don't think our kid had crossed home plate, and I was sprinting across the field because I was so excited that this tennis player who wanted to play softball drops down a perfect squeeze bunt. And I was just as excited over that as watching Bailey Brandon drop a 3-run bomb against Marty Tyson's Angels in OKC last fall to take the lead. Both of those bring you joy. And here's where I can make it real personal, because I'm passionate about the kids. This isn't about me. I've never won a game. I've coached a lot of kids that have won a lot of games.
Right.
I've never gotten a scholarship in football or softball, but these kids. So if I have an ego, blame the kids I've coached. It's their fault. If I get passionate, it's about the kids. When Jessie Mullins goes out and throws a no-hitter in her first game at Texas State, and Riley Trilicek goes out in Florida, I sit at home and get excited.
Yeah.
I don't sit at home and go, wow, look what I did. That's my kid. Because Riley, Jessie, those aren't my kids. I'm one link in a very long chain.
Yeah.
But if you love, it's what you do. I've seen you in your football camps. I mean, you don't care where that kid's from. If he's got a passion and desire, you're going to reach out to that kid just like you would the blue chipper out of LA. And so I think it really comes down to the coaching profession is about loving kids.
Yeah.
And this is so much longer than this. You're going to have to be relational. You got to know where a kid's coming from. So often you see that chip, and you know this. I spent 2 summers in South Central LA, Buckingham Medical Building,
Yep.
bottom floor, my stepdad's apartment office. And so I learned to run really, really fast back in those days. But here's what I know. Some of those kids, whether it's South Central LA or whether it's Austin, Texas, or whether it's Miami, Florida, like me, they come out of a really tough background. And if the right coach will not blow that, where do you find diamonds? Mm-hmm. Deep in dirt and coal and muck. Right. And so often we're not willing to go through the dirt to find the diamond. But I believe if you're truly passionate about coaching, then sometimes you got to move a little dirt. But down inside there is an amazing kid. And so when you talk about the number 2 team in the country with a roster full of SEC kids versus Hyde Park, 15 kids, 1 travel ball kid, here's the deal. You can't see it like that.
Right.
I just see kids. I just see, and so do you. I just see those student athletes. And when that kid drops down, that kid's a junior now, drops down a squeeze button, you get excited when a girl, let's just be honest, dude, just, wow, that swing, I don't know. But then she gets her first base hit. Man, I mean, it's truly the love of the kids.
Yeah, no, it brings up a fond memory when we were with you with the other organization with AJ. I remember a couple of games. We were new to the team, and we were in Florida, and close game to get some really elite talent. And our number 4 batter happened to be up, and I won't say who it was. And you called a bunt, and I remember all the parents, me and my wife, like everybody was not saying good things about you. And I remember asking about, like, hey, John, I coach a little bit. And he goes, Anthony, the number 4 hitter has got to be, I want my team to be as excited as the number 4 hitter hits a grand slam as when she gets a butt down and move a runner. And I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? That's a great point, but most coaches don't get. You and I have had lunch and talked many times. I think you and I both agree on what we call the 3 C's. If you're really a developing coach, you've got to care for that kid. You've got to connect with that kid. And once you get those first 2 C's, connecting and caring, then that kid will allow you to coach them, and they will run through a wall for you no matter what the sport is. And I think a lot of coaches forget that, to your point of it's all about notches and how many district championships I won. It's about my program. If you're using I and my too much, you're not really a coach. It's not really about the student athlete. It's really more about you, and you're using the student athlete for your own vanity, which I've never really received. So I love how you put that. Transitioning here, I want to get into Win the Moment. You've talked, tell me about how that started. I know how passionate you are. I watch you talk, and you can kind of similar to me. you can't fake passion. You either have it or you don't. And I see the videos, and I've seen you give that speech about how kids can take advantage of winning the moment. Talk about how it started, talk about how it's going, and why are you so passionate about that message?
Well, the truth is, and I'll tell it quick. I had a colleague. I was teaching in a high school at Hyde Park. I was a leadership teacher there, and he would sit across the hall and listen to me teach every day. And this was probably about 3 years ago. And he comes in one day, he goes something along these lines, but he goes, "Why are you so selfish?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Man, I sit over here every day and just listen to your class." He said, "Why don't you go share that with more people than just the Hyde Park kids?" And so I always tell people I got bullied into it. So in the fall of 19, we're in 21 now. So 19, we launched, if you will, and I decided to go on Facebook, say, "Hey, I'm going to do a mental game clinic down here in Round Rock." And I thought 3 people would sign up, and I think we had 58 kids sign up at like $75 a kid, like, which money embarrasses me, but and I was like, "Whoa!" And it just blew up from there. But it really comes down to this: in baseball, softball, we talk about one pitch. You can't do anything about the last one. You can't do anything about the next one. It's this moment right now. And so when the moment really came from, and we don't have enough time, but sleeping in my car as a senior in high school, and I had a guy by the name of Jeff pour into me, and he said something like this. He said, "If you make it through this time," my parents had left in high school and kind of raised myself. He said, "If you make it through this," he said, "one of these days," he said, "you're going to stand up in front of kids, convincing them that they can make it too." Man, that was like 38 years ago.
Wow.
And so when I get up in front of a group of kids now, we're over 3,000 kids and coaches live in under 2 years, and we had about 8 months where we didn't do much with COVID. So I'm excited that they come out, and when I say this, it bothers people, but it's who I am. I get embarrassed by it because I'm honestly I'm I'm the father of 7, and I'm a grandpa, um, and I just don't think I'm that big of a deal. But I do think this: I think there's kids out there that play football, that play basketball, and in their heart, they don't think they're that big of a deal.
Right.
And like Michelangelo, you want to knock off all the unnecessary pieces, and down inside that rock, there's a David, and I want to find those kids. The kid that maybe some people look past, maybe some people don't believe in, maybe they don't believe in themselves. But I want to convince those kids that if they make it through this, they're going to stand up someday and make a difference in somebody's life. And if kids grow up and make a difference in their communities, in their world, in their marriages, then man, I'm good. I'm good. And that's what it's all about. It's about convincing one kid and one live in this moment. I'm living in my car. Okay, I'm gonna get through this. And then there's gonna be another moment. And whether it's a bad football game, whether it's a slow recruiting process, whether it's a setback like COVID that's in our country, man, just keep breathing, because you're one moment away from greatness. And that's what I want for these kids.
Yeah. No, I love your passion, man. It's so on point with how I feel about it. I've talked about this. I truly believe the reason why I'm so passionate about sports, all sports, I think they're the greatest developer of life skills there is in your team sports and even some individual sports. I tell kids the things that make you great now, right now I tell kids, don't let anybody tell you all you can do is throw a softball or hit a ball in the park or tackle or catch a football. That's your output now. But when that sport is over with you or you're done with that sport, those same skills are going to make you successful in the next chapter of your life, whether it's being a father or a husband or a great salesperson or a CEO or a softball coach or a guy trying to run a podcast. The things that make you a great athlete translate to almost every other part in life of being successful. And that's why I love team sports. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping kids out, like you said, within the moment, because most kids aren't hearing that. All they're hearing is, "Hey, John, man, when you make it, man, throw me some tickets. Hey, get me a shirt. Hey, Riley, hey, when you guys are playing the regionals, hey, can you fly me?" Guys are looking for something to add on to. And I don't think it's all about that. Like you said, it's about celebrating that student athlete, that you were one link in the chain, because it does take a village. There's a lot of people involved in the success of student athletes. And I love the fact that, like you said earlier, and I believe this, coaches don't win games, coaches lose them, players win games. You've never hit a home run. You've never, had a diving catch in the outfield. You never had a big sack and the quarterback in the end zone. I mean, coach need to understand that it's the players that do that. And coaches are really, we're just kind of a platform to allow student athletes to be successful. I mean, what are your thoughts on just some of these? And I know, John, I'm gonna be honest with you, I've seen a lot of softball and club football, 7-on-7 coaches that are over the top, making it about them. I've seen it at games my daughter played for you. What is your message to those guys about you might want to change your output and your view of things to make it more about the student athlete and not so much about your record or your club team or whatever?
Well, I don't know if this is popular. I talk a lot about not trying to win, that I don't coach to win. Now, hopefully that doesn't need to be explained. I want to beat your butt every time we're on. Make no mistake about, I want to beat you today. But I think, and Sue Enquist, a friend of mine, said this from UCLA, 11-time national championship coach. You got to succeed right now. And we put so much pressure on them that when the natural pressure comes, fifth inning of a national championship game, they're overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. We've got to break this life thing down. I talk about outcomes and goals. National championships are outcomes. Being a great dad, that's an outcome. Winning, those are outcomes. A 500 average, that's an outcome. I want these student athletes to focus on what it takes to get a national championship outcome. You talked about bunting, and I love that you share sitting in the stands, because I used to think that all parents said nothing but good things about me. But, you said something about that. Do you understand the powerful message that is being sent to your team when your 4-hole moves the runners to second and third for your 5-hole to drive them in? You don't think that 5-hole's got some RBIs in them? Yeah. Well, I like my chances second and third, 1 out, more than I do first and second, no outs. Yeah. So I'm going to move those runners. We're going to play the game. But what's fascinating to me is when you get kids to buy into the selfless pieces, man, it's easy for somebody to go be the glory guy. Look, you get to be the hero today. And so I placed a premium on celebrating the sack bunt, because I think it's the most incredible example. Selfless. Real life. What is marriage? It's the lifelong sack bunt. I'm giving myself up for what my spouse wants. I mean, and so I think that the game is so important that we have to help them understand it's not about you, it's about us. And back to the recruiting piece, think about this. You've got the football coach at Miami or Florida, or the softball coach at Tennessee. They're recruiting kids from Florida, New York, Southern California, Montana. They're bringing them all to Tallahassee, and they have to make that group of superstars a team. Yeah. Well, on any given day, I have 15 to 17 of the players that are the very best on their high school team. They've never seen the bench, but I can only start 9 of them. So on any given day, I have 8 superstars. Would now take it to the next level. Division I SEC football. That guy's got a roster of studs, but only 11 are going to take the field at any given moment. And kids need to understand that strive to be the starter, strive to be the All-American. I want that to be your mindset. But I'll tell you what, Anthony, if these kids and coaches would spend more time pushing others up, they wouldn't have to worry about success. A coach will never have to worry about his win-loss record if every single day he strives to make every kid he's recruited, if he helps them become successful, guess what happens? You look back and you go, wait, how many games are you saying I won? Yeah. Because you didn't even dawn on you, because you were so busy creating winners that you didn't realize as a coach you became a winner too. Yeah, but it was never your focus.
Yeah, John, that's such great points. But we can go on forever here. But as we close up, I do want to touch on, we're both men of faith, and I do want to touch on the importance with we're hearing more about mental illness with student athletes at a very young level, very young age. You're hearing about all this, on campus, safety and especially females in softball. Talk to these kids as we finish up here about the importance of faith, believing in something bigger than yourself, that you didn't get there by yourself. Talk to us a little bit about that in a way that you feel comfortable about the importance of just sharing your faith and keeping that faith through which could be a very successful college career or a college career that's got some bumps in the road. Talk about the importance of that, of always relying back and leaning back on your faith.
Yeah, I tell you, it's just me. I think the most successful people are people of faith. Now, my faith is in Jesus Christ, and I'm not here to preach, but my faith is in the Holy Bible, Genesis to Revelation. That being said, everybody lives by faith. Everybody. I don't care if they're an atheist, a Christian, or whatever. Everybody lives by faith, and no greater environment do you see faith than in team sports.
Yep.
When we call a squeeze bunt, last thing I tell the runner on third, steal home. Trust her. She got to get her job done. Don't worry about her job. You go hard and let her get her job done. Well, at the end of the day, for me, my life is in Jesus's hands. My everything about me, if I can't coach tomorrow, there must be a reason. If I can't play tomorrow. And one of the tragedies is when I see a young student athlete go through an injury and immediately you see this hopelessness. Mm-hmm. They feel, because they have put their entire identity into what they are, i.e. an athlete, not who they are, a great person, a man or woman of integrity and character. Faith instills values. And I realize we live in a funny time where we can't talk about our faith. We can't talk about things, but everything about me personally, I teach based on my belief in the Word of God, my faith in God. And it has to be there. Man, I mean, you and I have talked about some hot topics from race to gender to equality in women and men's sports. And man, there's so many wrongs out there. And you and I are on the same page with this. At the end of the day, I better trust something bigger than me, because anything less than a faith in things I don't understand, I don't know what to tell the kid when he blows his knee out. There's a bigger plan for you. You're going to come back bigger and stronger from this adversity, but you better put your faith in something. And I would challenge every student athlete to search out what they have faith in and where they place their faith, because that's going to be the thing that separates those that make it. And I'm talking about life, make it forever, make it through their athletic career, beyond their athletic career, in their family life, all the way through retirement. Faith matters. And every single successful team has faith in some form or fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. John, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for a lot of things, but thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for all the help and assistance you've given my daughter, AJ, and myself in all the hundreds of student athletes you've come across, from Hyde Park to the Blaze and to the Bombers and everywhere else, man. I truly respect you as a man, as a husband, and I see you as a father, and just all the things you do, man. Win the moment and all the great things you're doing, man. I look forward to our next lunch. I thank you again for all the support you're giving my daughter, and let's chop it up here again. I'd love to have you back on the podcast. There's so many great nuggets that you can share to help student athletes realize their dreams of playing their sport at the college level, to hopefully get a education, get a degree at zero debt. And so I'd love to talk more down the road about that. So thank you for your time tonight, man. Appreciate you coming on the podcast, and you have a great rest of your week.
Hey, love you, brother. Shout out AJ. Good to see you, girl.
All right. Thanks, John.
See you, brother. Bye-bye.